Hello, I'm Gary Gorman, Chairman of Gorman and Company. Welcome to our company. I'm really pleased that you joined us, and we will do our best to make your career with our firm the best experience it can possibly be. A little bit of background. I practiced law for 4 years. In June of 1984, I left the law firm with 2 partners, and our fundamental premise was we were going to put apartment projects under contract, raise the money through an internal broker-dealer, raise it from investors, and then have somebody else do the hard work of managing the property, hold it for 4 or 5 years, sell it, and hopefully make money, and we'd get a piece of the appreciation of the property. Well, within about 6 weeks of leaving the law firm, I discovered that the older partner had a financial problem. The marketing guy and we were both 28 years old. We left and we started our own little firm. Did a small 24-unit project that was very complicated, had about 6 layers of financing. That's what really was the ticket to be in this business, which was a 24-unit historic renovation in Evansville, Wisconsin, called Seminary Park Apartments. It was 3 buildings that made up an abandoned school. Didn't make any money on it, but that gave me a little credibility to continue in the development business. And when it was done, the marketing guy, my partner, came to me and said, Gary, I can't live like this. I never know if I'm gonna have a paycheck. I've got a family to support. I've got to get a real job. He left and it was just me. I was by myself in a basement office. And so I did one additional small project, 20 units by myself. It was a historic renovation. And then tax reform happened in October of 1986, created an affordable housing tax credit, Section 42 of the Internal Revenue Code. And I thought I might have some success raising capital using that tax credit because we had some minor success raising money for the 2 prior projects using the historic tax credit. I went to builders and I said, I can raise equity money for you. I didn't know if I could, but I said I could. And I got one guy to bite. I formed actually the very first private placements of equity offerings in the state of Wisconsin using the affordable housing tax credit that had just been created. And then I thought if I built something on my own, then it would work more smoothly. But I went to the bank and tried to get construction financing, and they said, well, you don't have any money and you don't have a track record of building anything. We need a co-signer. So I had to go to my parents to have them co-sign the construction loan. When we got to the second phase of the project, I got a call from an investment banker from a firm called Boston Financial, and her name was Marie Koitman, and she said, we have a fund that invests in projects that generate tax credits. So that was the start of accessing institutional capital, and that's when it really launched. Years later, I was at a conference and Marie Koitman was there, and there were a bunch of developers standing around after dinner, and Marie said, you know, I did a deal with a developer one time that put his bicycle on his financial statement, and we all laughed, and she said, it was Gorman. And I said, no. And the next day she sent me the financial statement. I listed my 10-speed bicycle on it. In the early years, there were quite a few challenges trying to coordinate the efforts of the various critical components to the development process. I acted as the developer, but we had outside architects that I hired. We'd have an outside general contractor and an outside property management firm. I was constantly refereeing disputes between those outside entities. And I thought, if I could internalize the critical functions to the development process, it would go smoother and we would have more focus on a quality asset that would run well for a long period of time. Initially, I internalized the property management function, and then construction, and then eventually architecture. So at the end of the day, we call ourselves a vertically integrated affordable housing firm. We decided that we were going to grow geographically as opposed to trying to develop other types of real estate. We decided to stick with our core competence, which we believe is developing affordable multifamily housing. Our philosophy was we were going to have partners that were what we called market presidents in different states to operate as the leader of the operation in those states. The first market president was actually a gentleman that we brought on as initially general counsel, but then he was so enthused about development and he was so talented, we asked him to take over as market president in the state of Wisconsin. That was Ted Matkin. And people ask me, well, why did you possibly go from Wisconsin to Arizona? It really was about talent. It was about finding the right kind of person that had the experience and the leadership skills and the people skills. And Brian Swanton obviously fit that bill, given that he's now CEO of the company. So he was market president for the state of Arizona. That was our strategy for growth. At this point, we actually are working in 12 states, have 7 market presidents, but the first one was Brian Swanton. People ask why we're in the hotel business if we think our core competence is affordable multifamily housing. What happened was, in the recession of 2007, 8, 9, the capital sources for developing multifamily affordable housing essentially dried up. I was trying to figure out how to access capital to keep our operations afloat. I was asked by a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison to speak to a group of visiting government officials from Shanghai, China. They wanted to hear about how the private sector works with various levels of government to produce affordable housing and do urban revitalization, particularly historic renovation. The interpreter at that talk was a Chinese law student. I was so impressed with his energy, his ability to navigate not just the languages, but kind of the cultural differences. I offered him an internship in our firm. I said, just think about what we might be able to do together someday. He left, and like a year later, he called me and he said, I just raised $12 million for a developer out of the state of Washington. And I thought, oh my God, he was able to raise capital. How did you do it? And he described this EB-5 visa program where non-US citizens invest a certain amount of money in a business or an enterprise in a high unemployment census tract, and they get a green card so they can come to this country essentially as citizens. I said, well, let's do it. That program is all about job creation. Hotels create a lot more jobs than apartment buildings do. So our first project using EB-5 was the Brewhouse Inn and Suites hotel and restaurant in Milwaukee, which is where Pabst beer was originally brewed. So the hotels that we've done, the first one was my idea because we needed to keep our staff busy. The second one and the third one were really a response to the community asking us to do a renovation project that nobody else had done, because our fundamental premise is that we want to partner with a community that we consider a client. Hence, we were asked to look at the Stella Hotel in Kenosha, which was a renovation of an old Elks Club that had deteriorated substantially. And in Rockford, I was personally asked by the mayor to renovate a large, empty industrial building right in the heart of their downtown. If you ask me what's rewarding about those kinds of urban revitalization projects, it's our ability to act as a catalyst for the revitalization of downtown areas. I think about Rockford, Illinois. Our hotel, which was a $90 million investment in that downtown. When I sit at the bar at the Embassy Suites, I look around and I see all these people and I just smile because we did that. I get to go out and visit our properties and thank the folks that are doing frontline work face-to-face with the customer, because that's difficult. I enjoy watching people convert unused or dilapidated buildings into something that thrives and adds life to the community. I really enjoy that. And I really like grand openings, because that's the fruit of the labor of an entire team, often for years. We've had projects that we worked on for 10 years. In fact, the one we're sitting in right now, we started working on it 10 years ago. Four years ago, we made a major decision, and that was to reconstitute the ownership of the company. And I chose to step down as CEO, and I asked Brian Swanton to take the job as as president and CEO of the company. Why did I do that? Because I was starting to get questions from capital sources about succession planning. And I'd always joke with them, you know, do I look particularly old today? And they'd give some polite response. But the reality was, I wanted to create a succession plan before somebody forced me to do it. I created a structure where there was a new company created, Gorman & Company LLC. The old company is now called Gorman Holdings. There was only one shareholder of Gorman Holdings. There are many shareholders of the new company. Many shareholders that are leaders in the company own 40% of the company that was created January 1 of 2018. 60% of the company is owned by a family trust, and my instructions to that trustee is never sell unless there's an emergency situation that I can't even predict. So I tried to maximize a structure that would make the company as stable as possible for as long as possible. And so one of the things that I decided to do was to create a charitable entity, a nonprofit, 501c3 and Internal Revenue Code. And the primary thrust of that nonprofit is to provide healthy food to the residents of our apartment buildings. So I have a professor from the university who runs the gardens. Last year, he produced almost 10,000 pounds of vegetables delivered to the residents of our apartments. It's a farm that is in my family since 1852. When you come to the corporate office, you'll see the values on the wall. You'll see them in a number of places. The number one value is we build and protect the best reputation at all costs. It has literally cost us millions of dollars to support projects that weren't doing well beyond what we had to do. Because somebody told me a long time ago that a reputation is a fragile thing. You need to protect it at all costs. So that's what I'm asking you to do. In whatever function you perform for the company, if you could think about, what am I doing to make sure that when people hear about our company, they think positive things, and that the reputation is kept positive for a very long time.